Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm off Spot Daz.
I'm off Spot Aidan.
Here we are, Aidan. Remember yesterday we were talking about the logistics of, I think it was Alabama doing the game day, getting ready for the game day.
Yeah.
This is what goes into an NFL team's journey into an international
That's
game.
Wembley Stadium, isn't it?
I've seen this, and I was just amazed by it because I was in logistics, as you know.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, so I know what goes into.
Did you see this with the blokes or in your own time?
I've seen it both. I've watched it again. This will be the third time I watched it.
Must be a good one.
I'm a bit of a logistics nerd because what it comes down to is I know what goes into, like, I did a lot of concerts and a lot of like sporting events. So I never did the NFL, but I used to get involved in like Formula One, Porsche Super Cup, certain concerts and bands, big bands, so like touring around the world. So it's interesting to see what goes into the NFL's journey. Because the amount, you're not only doing, when I did the bands and the thing, I only did the equipment.
Yeah.
Never got involved in the personnel. So this is like personnel as well. You know, you've got to cater for all the players, everything. You know, medical teams, the whole 9 yards. So let's see what goes into it. What goes into the NFL's team journey for an international game.
Yes, sir. Here in London with it, baby. Let's go, T. No better feeling. We super blessed. My favorite city. I love London.
NFL Game Day in London.
From Wembley Stadium in London, England.
West Coast teams like the Los Angeles Rams must travel all their players, personnel, and equipment and supplies over 5,000 miles just to play in a regular season game in London. The challenges of such a voyage must be met with a large-scale effort by key staffers in the organization to set the team up for success overseas.
So London.
Several months prior to game day in London, a shipping container is filled to the brim and shipped with several tons of supplies and equipment, including nutrition and hydration items, medical supplies, practice equipment, generators for electricity, and an assortment of dry goods and condiments.
Setting up the team with international travel, some of the planning begins almost a year in advance. We have to work as a team to be able to make this transition so seamless. What we try and do is make sure athletes and coaches and players, they don't feel the transition because we take care of that ahead of time.
I think with international travel, it's the small things you don't think about what you need. It's the Band-Aids, it's the wound care stuff, and you have these alcohols, these peroxides, these antibiotics, and international travel, they say, hey, you can't bring this, and this because it's a flammable or hazardous material. So you can't fly it on a plane, so you have to send this stuff on a boat. Our medical team, we're a walking hospital. Everywhere we go, we are a pop-up medical team. About 900 items and about 100 big pieces of equipment ready for any injury. So what we did 5 months ago was we prepped a whole allotment of things, of supplies that gets on an ocean freight container and shows up hopefully 5 months later when you land and touch down on a Friday in London for a game on Sunday.
One thing I always sort of gets me on this is I'm not quite sure with the amount of games increasing every year in Europe. So you've got like games in Germany now. They're increasing games in England because they're playing at the Spurs Stadium, they're playing at Wembley Stadium. So I think there's 2 games at Spurs, 2 games at Wembley, right? I think it's 4 games.
To be honest.
Whatever it is, I think it's 4 games now in the UK, and then you've got I think 2 games in Germany.
Yeah.
You should really have a European base. So you hold all the generators, you hold all certain products that can stay there for a year, you know, and then just ship them from the distribution centre in the UK or in Europe, wherever it may be, in a free port in Europe. You don't even have to keep it, you can ship it way in advance if you need they might need certain stuff that you can't really access in Europe.
Yeah.
But you can send that 4 months ahead of time into a distribution centre.
Yeah.
So it sits there and holds in a warehouse.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have thought that you would send it off 5 months before you go on a boat or something.
Well,
when you get there, it arrives.
You've got to remember,
you've
got to hook from Los Angeles to New York.
You've
got otherwise you're sailing all the way around the Panama Canal and all the way through that way, around the bottom of Europe and bottom of the USA. It's going to take even longer. So to get it across and then sail it and then clear customs, put it into a facility and stock it, and then deliver it on game day.
It's
or
a lot,
you
isn't
need
it, that you don't really think about.
But they should. I think they might have changed. They probably do have a European base now where they keep, especially to shipping generators. It's all sort of stuff you can access over here. There's certain people like a Greco who do like generators for the globe.
Yeah.
Cover all over the place. Well, I guess it's availability and if they own the product.
9 days before the London game, an additional 25,000 pounds of cargo is flown overseas, including practice equipment, IT and audiovisual gear, and 63 player bags carrying helmets, pads, jerseys, and cleats.
Because of international protocol, you have to list each item, its serial number, its value, and all those things, just to clear customs.
So everything has to be
Equipment
itemized.
is one thing.
Can you not just say, like, if they know it's the Los Angeles Rams, can they not just let them off and not have to?
No, because you're penetrating all kinds of like corruption and you know, if the drug world get hold of the Rams, get access and it gets straight through without having to clear customs. Next thing, they'll be penetrating the drug world. They'll be penetrating the Los Angeles Rams because it's an easy option. But what you've got here, I mean, you list not everything. You don't have to put one helmet medium, $500. One helmet large, $500. You put something like 250 helmets with a gross value.
Yeah.
250 pads with a gross value. You've got temporary imports. So you've got to do a temporary import because it's going to be shipped back out again.
But NFL players require a little more care when handling. One major challenge for any NFL team traveling to London is jet lag. For West Coast teams like the Los Angeles Rams, the journey means adapting to an 8-hour time difference.
Throughout the week, we'll progressively try to manage our time frame of our daily regimen with our practice and everything, slowly manipulating that time back a little bit to get a little bit closer to UK time.
Part of your body clock is obviously when we want to feed it. So our fueling strategies will change as we try to slowly progress into that local time zone.
The biggest thing from a nutrition side is probably hydration up front. We know the limits that can come from being dehydrated in performance, so we definitely encourage guys to weigh in, then weigh out accordingly after practice.
Here we go, man, let's go. Speed, good stride.
Then we can kind of go in and give them a more exact calculation from an electrolyte supplementation standpoint or just an overall quantity of liquid. We want those guys to be back at a range that they're really comfortable with and that we feel like sets them up for success.
When we look at the scheduling, we're going to play around with how hard we're going to train our guys leading into that flight, because what we don't want to do is inhibit too much of their recovery process by creating too much metabolic damage with a big practice or a big lift session that takes them to a point where they can't recover on a flight.
We realize that this travel is pretty taxing on the guys already. We really want to almost overemphasize the use of antioxidants. We may sneak in a few more berries during this period of time and then encourage guys from a probiotic standpoint. So, we'll encourage guys to use yogurt and those types of things. Immune system health is huge for us here.
Using the NFL schedule to their advantage, the Rams begin their international journey with a pit stop in Atlanta, where they play the Atlanta Falcons exactly 1 week before their game in London. This allows the team to split the long journey into 2 shorter legs, and it gives the players more time to adapt to the time difference they will face.
So realistically, it's one of them when you're going to be away from home for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, as a sports person in any sport, you're away from home for a long time.
Yeah, but like
not a golfer.
Not at once though. Do you know what I mean?
You are. You take Formula One, for example. So Formula One.
You're usually away every week, like most weekends.
Yeah, but then you're practicing. You're not just a Saturday and Sunday. You're there Thursday to Sunday, and then Mondays like your travel days. So I think you don't really have time to go home and come back. If you might not remember when you were younger, how many times was I away for a long time? But I used to come back for like a day or 2 days and then go back out again. Yeah. Because I could fit that in for what I was doing. Sports people, they're different. They're required. They go through all the analytics and all the data to know what's been produced from the previous game or race or whatever.
No, but there's not many sports where you'll go to a game and then fly away and play another game and then come back and you're away from your home for like over a week.
What about basketball?
I don't think you're away for over. If you go on like a road game, you might play like 4 games on the road. You're probably away for about a week, to be fair, I guess.
It's the same. I think most sports you travel a hell of a lot. Because even when you come back, sometimes you don't even go back to your family. Sometimes you go back to a training facility, and then you go from a training facility. Where you might, even if you do go back to your family, you're only getting like a day or max 2 days. Yeah. During season. That's why when the summertime comes or the break season, depends on what sport you're playing, what time of the year you're off. But when that break period comes, that's your family time. When you go away for a full, you do nothing for a month.
in London.
We'll land about 11:30 to midnight East Coast time. So right when we get there, we want to get them right to bed. Then we want to get them up and get them on the East Coast schedule right away.
We want your body clock as an athlete, as a professional football player, to be shifted appropriately to wherever we're going to play locally. We're basically losing a night. Once we leave on Thursday, we're going to arrive there on Friday. So in this case, we'll start to lead in. We'll push our schedule back to bank sleep because the benefits of sleep far outweigh most of the other things that we'll do from a performance standpoint. Realistically, it's hard to sleep on a flight that's going international. It's hard to maintain quality sleep.
Our number one goal, obviously, is for them to get to London and feel as organic as possible like they're in LA. It's all about decreasing jet lag, okay? As we all know, when you travel across time zones, your clock naturally is on a rhythm of where you live at. And so circadian rhythm is basically that rhythm that your body kind of knows when it's time to go to sleep and when it's naturally time to get up. And that's how we live every day. And we know if jet lag and sleep deprivation then becomes a decrease in performance. And we can't afford to do that.
3rd and inches, Goff rolling, looking, cutting back, touchdown. And they're off to London with a 37-10 victory over the Atlanta Falcons.
After spending a few extra days in Atlanta to rest and begin adjusting sleep schedules, the team flies the remaining 4,204 miles on an 8-hour flight to London.
Thursday evening, we'll fly through the night to fly to London. We get to London, it's pretty much daytime, early morning time.
Once landed and now occupying 180 hotel rooms, the team's battle against shifting time zones and body rhythms continues.
You know what the mad thing is? I reckon they could probably easily walk around London as well and not even get recognised.
Yeah, you do get a lot of NFL fans. You're probably right. You probably won't.
But I don't think they'd get recognised.
No, I think you're probably right. London's kind of like, hey, in London, seldom people get recognised.
Yeah.
Everyone walks very New York style. Everyone's got their head down and don't even look at you. So like nowadays, sort of thing, especially in the London area.
No, but I don't think I could. If the Rams team walked past me, I'd do you know?
You'd know.
I'd know, but I wouldn't. If they were all wearing normal clothes, I wouldn't be able to tell you what team that is. Or
Yeah,
what,
you're
know
right.
what I mean?
You're right, because I was in a restaurant.
I might be able to maybe someone like Cooper Kupp. I would recognise him because I know.
You recognise.
Like,
you might pick up on certain familiar
yeah.
faces. I was in a restaurant one day, and a big group of guys came in, and I'm looking at them going, "They're a team of some sort, right?"
Yeah.
And it turns out that they were a Japanese rugby team. Yeah, and it was like, and I thought, I can't just let it go. I've got to ask. So I said, "What's the deal here?" Can't just be all on a boys' night out, you know. And they were telling me the Japanese rugby team.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One of the first things that we will do once we arrive at our hotels, we won't even check into our rooms. We're going to drop our bags. We're going to do an activation workout.
15 yards. Ready. Go.
So that we can, number one, activate tissue, get out of the seated position that we've been in. We're going to try to get that athlete's body back to being ready for football because fast forward, we're going to have football practice in a matter of a couple of hours. So that process starts immediately with feet on the ground.
And get these guys
well
moving
into
right
it.
away. Keep them on schedule by having meetings, having meals. We don't want to get to the rooms. We don't want them taking naps. We want them to stay up throughout the day so they can go to bed on that normal time on that Friday night.
In their travels, teams have learned that the toughest opponent in any cultural divide is taste buds.
Our biggest obstacle usually is the food and making sure that it's most what they're used to. That's what we've learned is try to stay Americanized as long as possible so their comforts are met.
It's working with their chefs and at the hotel, trying to make sure that, how the foods are prepared and all those things are, very similar to what we would do in Los Angeles.
In dealing with the hotels there, we're obviously pretty in tune with where they're getting their food from. It's coordinating with them, and there's obviously some things that we're not going to set them up for failure with. We're not going to ask them to have a bunch of avocados laying around, just knowing that that's not going to be either something they can even get or that it's going to be up to our quality. So some of that stuff,
that's where they're made, though, aren't they? Los Angeles avocados.
Well, I don't know.
That's where they're there's a
grown.
lot of them there.
Yeah, I don't know where they are, but again, at the same time, we can get avocado. We can get pretty much anything in the UK.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to going somewhere
to get an avocado from
south of Eritrea, somewhere in the middle of Africa, somewhere.
Kind of eliminate on the front end and make it easy for them. So it's just some of the finer details, the lingo that we may use that we don't realize they're not accustomed to, and it's just talking through those things. Oddly enough, even things like turkey and cheese sandwiches, they might interpret that as plain turkey and plain cheese sandwiches. So it's things like that that you just have to be really specific on and just make sure that everything's, kind of tied down.
I get it, though.
The second largest obstacle when staying away from home, sleep.
When taking an NFL team on the road, there's a lot of processes that take place so that we can make them comfortable in a sleep setting. Our operations team will go into the hotels and set the temperatures at a desired temperature for us, which is actually 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Then she will actually give them suggested markers, as in, shut your phone off, turn it to vibrate. We will send out a wake-up call for the following morning.
That's mad how they have it, like every room of the player set to a certain temperature.
I 100%. Sports science now has took over from, it's mental, it's gone crazy.
It's like make it 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's everything, how many paces you can do in a day, to what you can eat and what you can't eat, and how much fluid you can take. They're robotic now. Athletes now are just robots.
Yeah.
Told what to eat, what to do, what time to go to bed, what time to wake up, how much game time you can play on PS4 or PS5 or whatever. You know, it's mad.
Even coming into like something like how much sex you should have and stuff as well.
Yeah.
That's actually a thing.
Yeah, I know.
If anyone's worried about alarm clocks on their cell phones and things like that, we'll try to mitigate those risks of an early wake up because someone's sending you a text message from the opposite coast. Then we'll actually move into darkening the shades as much as possible, and then we're going to try to reduce ambient lighting or noise. So all those steps take place way in advance through our operations team and through meetings with our performance department, where we can actually start to look at what's most impactful, how can we get them into an ideal situation to get really adequate sleep for this trip.
London, we here, huh? So what does it all add up to? The year of planning, the hours of manpower, the thousands of pounds of equipment, and the commitment to prime physical conditioning?
Enabling guys not to have to overcome an unnecessary obstacle during the game. Nutrition is never going to win or lose us a football game, but it can create an obstacle that a guy doesn't necessarily need to have to overcome during the game to perform at his best. So if he's adequately hydrated, if he's fueled the way that he fuels on a weekly basis, then at that point, my job's essentially done.
As long as our players feel good, they will perform good, and we're confident in that. So we're trying to take care of all the precautionary steps that we possibly can.
Touchdown, LA!
To put them in the best situation possible so that we can maximize performance in London at 5 o'clock p.m. when we face off against the Cincinnati Bengals.
What's successful for us is when we win the game to come home. If everything goes according to plan, logistically as far as timing and not being a distraction to the coaches or players, that's the goal. But there's nothing like winning the game and coming home on an 11-hour flight, in a good mood.
They just do this great. You have to travel, and you still have to come out here and win like this in London.
Yo, it's got to win in London, baby. You know I love this city, man. It's my favorite city. Shout out to the UK. I'm moving over here after I retire, baby. Shout out to London fans. I appreciate y'all here with us.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
You don't think about a lot of the stuff that they go through to bring it over here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that might have changed. I think this video is a few years old now, a couple of years old. But I think it might have changed in the last year or so because they're expanding the amount of games they're doing over here. So they've got to change certain things.
I'm not so sure why, though, to be fair.
But then again, that'll be an NFL thing rather than an individual team thing. So maybe they won't. Don't know. But I think there's a lot of stuff they don't really need to bring from the USA as a team. It could be centralised over here from the NFL. And, basic stuff that's generic wherever you go sort of thing that every team uses the same. Generators, for example.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, all right?
It is, yeah.
What goes
a lot
into it.
goes into it that you don't even think about, to be fair.
I know.
It would just go over your head, wouldn't it?
It's a great video to watch, though, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.